We are Penn State. It is an iconic cheer, symbolic to students, fans, and alumni of Penn State University. It's one of those things you yell at someone wearing your school gear. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you see someone wearing Penn State gear, you yell, "We are!" And if they don't respond, "Penn State," then they are clearly an imposter. To an outsider, it doesn't seem very inspiring. It's just a simple declaration. But there's meaning behind those words. It is not just a cheer, and that's what this video is about. The origin of one of the most recognizable cheers in all of college football. It's a story about standing up against segregation, breaking color barriers, and unity. It's a college football story that deserves to be told. I'm John Johnston, and this is Hardcore College Football History. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell icon so you can get notified when I release new videos, because Lord knows I'm not going to stick to any kind of schedule. The story of We Are Penn State begins with a man named Wally Triplett, a Negro football player, as they said in those days. And if you look through the newspapers in the mid-1940s when Triplett played, you can find the word Negro attached to every black player mentioned, regardless of what school they played for. Triplett was born on April 18th, 1926, in Lamont, Pennsylvania. He was the son of a U.S. postal worker. He was so good at football in high school, the University of Miami sent him a scholarship offer, sight unseen. Miami was segregated at the time, and Triplett sent them back a letter letting them know he was black. Miami sent him a letter in return, rescinding the scholarship offer and apologizing for having sent it to him in the first place. Triplett attends Penn State in the fall of 1945, and along with Dennis Hoggard, become the first black football players for the Nittany Lions. On November 17, 1945, Triplett, a running back and linebacker, becomes the first black player to play for Penn State in a 33-0 upset loss to Michigan State. In 1946, Penn State had a November 29th game, the end of the season, scheduled against the University of Miami in Florida. Miami, like the rest of the South, does not allow black players to play. Penn State's coach, Bob Higgins, left it up to his team to vote as to whether or not they would play the game. The Penn State team voted to stay together, that if Miami wouldn't allow their black players to participate, then they would not play the game. In response, Miami's president, Bowman F. Ash, writes a letter to Penn State president Ralph D. Hepsel stating the game should be called off to avoid any unfortunate incidents. From the Miami News on November 5th, 1946, we see an article called "Penn State Game Here Called Off," and it includes the context of the letter. Dr. Wyan has told me of the difficulties we face from the fact that your football team that comes from here has several Negroes on the roster. As you know, it has been the custom in the South to have separate Negro teams, separate colleges and universities. It would seem a simple thing for several Negro boys to compete on a white team, and yet it runs into a number of complications. Hotels and social affairs are restricted, and in fact, I might say that there are two separate cultures in the South. Whether this is the best plan for the region and whether it is practical as a permanent arrangement, I do not pretend to know. However, that is the system which now exists. I have been living and working in the South now for a good many years. During that time, I observed constant improvement in the condition of the colored people, and also a constant improvement in the relations between the races. Though retarded, sometimes by agitators, some lines of demarcation which were once horizontal and prevented the upward progress of some parts of the population have become perpendicular, but the lines are still there. Many of the ablest leaders in the South, both white and colored, are anxious that no unfortunate incidents occur when they could be avoided. Probably the best thing for each of us to do would be for each of us to seek another opponent and not catapult very important and not well understood interracial problems into a football game. And as satisfactory to you, we shall move along that line. Very truly yours, B.F. Ash. President, University of Miami. Miami tried to offer Syracuse a game to replace the Penn State game, but Syracuse turned them down, with the Syracuse Daily Orange, the student newspaper, carrying a headline that said, "No thanks, Miami," and had the following: "Unless Miami changes its athletic policy, it would be better for all concerned if they dropped from the realm of college athletics. In a sport that is already battered and rocked by tinges of dishonor, this latest indignity reaches a new high." To give you an idea about how they felt about things in Miami, from the Miami Herald of November 22nd, 1946, in a column called "The Town Crier" by Jack Bell, Mr. Bell says this: "Northern teams have been playing Southern teams for years and quietly left their Negro players out of uniform when they came south. So why select Miami as the hotbed of Southern bigotry? It would be more fair, but still not right, to suggest that Penn State showed poor taste. Certainly authorities there knew they couldn't play Negroes in the South. Did they assume when they booked the game their Negro candidates wouldn't make the team? All this supposition aside, Penn State felt they did not wish to come, leaving off the squad players who had earned positions and that they were being fair, adhering to the principles of justice. More than one football team from the North with Negro players has come to play the Hurricanes. The Stingarees didn't make a scene, as did Penn State. They merely brought the boys along and kept them out of uniform. Father Flanagan isn't canceling Saturday night's game with St. Peter and Paul because his Negro boys can't play here. The Cleveland Browns won't play their two Negro stars against the Seahawks. The Seahawks were a professional football team with the All-America Football Conference then. So basically, Bell is saying that Penn State showed poor taste because they wanted to play their Negro players, or at least have them in uniform as part of the team. The Syracuse student newspaper response shows that, yes, your parents or grandparents were snarky when they were in college too, and they wanted to change the world. And they did. It just took a long time. At the end of this, I'll have a quote from Wally Triplett that explains why things take so long. According to Triplett, the vote greatly unified the team and helped them to an undefeated season in 1947. Penn State plays as an independent. Coach Bob Higgins is in his 18th season, and the Nittany Lions go 9-0 in the regular season, outscoring their opponents 319-27. The defense allowed 3.8 points a game and 17 rushing yards per game. It's Penn State's first perfect season since 1912. The Cotton Bowl is in Dallas, Texas, and Texas is a segregated state. Once again, the issues of Negro football players arise. There is talk of having meetings about the issue, but Penn State captain and All-American offensive guard Steve Suey states, "There will be no meetings. We're Penn State," and this is where the phrase comes from. When he states, "We're Penn State," he means, we've already decided. There's nothing to discuss. You play all of us or none of us, and it's not up for debate. An article from the New Pittsburgh Courier, December 13th, 1947, entitled, "We play all of our players or none," Higgins, and the article includes the following. If there was any soul-searching turmoil connected with the Cotton Bowl invitation this year, it took place in Dallas among Cotton Bowl officials and Southern Methodist players and officials. Don't look for it here at Penn State. They always play all of their team members or they play none of them. Penn State had never come face-to-face with this situation before last year when they had a regularly scheduled game with Miami University in Miami, Florida. The decision to forego this game rather than compromise with the deep Dixie traditions of discrimination, which they dislike, was not easy and involved some serious sacrifices by white members of the Penn State 11. As for Triplett and Hoggard, they seem less concerned about the forthcoming game in Dixie than anybody else around town. In the first place, both of them had had most of the experiences which they could reasonably anticipate in Texas. Said Triplett, "In almost every game we have played in since I came here, I have been called names by opposing players. You hear the N-word all through football games, no matter where they are played. It doesn't bother me. but sometimes it infuriates the other Penn State players. When we are insulted, the other boys get mad and really play their hearts out to vindicate us. The fellows on this team are swell, and they don't take that stuff lying down. Hoggard explained that they have occasionally been roughed up, but that we know how to take care of ourselves. The other guys in the squad don't stand for any obvious fouls, and they take care of guys who deliberately try to hurt us. Much of the rough stuff is good, hard football, and we don't expect any favors. We can dish it out, and we can take it. You look at that last line there, it's kind of like a challenge. Southern Methodist wanted to play Penn State. From the Pittsburgh Press, November 24th, 1947, in a column by Chester L. Smith called The Village Smithy, we see, from our coach Matty Bell down through the whole squad, we want State. We have absolutely no objection to either Triplett or Hoggard. We regard them as fine players, and they must be gentlemen, or Bob Higgins wouldn't be coaching them. The other big problem the Nittany Lions face is segregation. There are no hotels in Dallas that will allow them to stay, so they end up staying at a naval air base outside of Dallas. The Cotton Bowl between Penn State and SMU is played on January 1st, 1948. SMU is led by Doak Walker, for whom the Doak Walker Award is named for. The award goes to the top running back each year in college football and was established in 1990. SMU scores in the first 5 minutes when Walker tosses a 53-yard touchdown pass to Paul Page. Then in the second quarter, Walker scores on a 2-yard touchdown run, but SMU misses the extra point, making it a 13-0 lead. It looks like Southern Methodist is going to crush Penn State. But Penn State charged back through the air as Elwood Petchel hits Larry Cooney with a 38-yard touchdown strike with 20 seconds left in the first half. The extra point is good, cutting the SMU's halftime lead to 13-7. Triplett catches a 3-yard touchdown pass to put Penn State in position to win the game in the second half, but they miss the extra point and the game ends in a 13-13 tie. As a senior in 1948, Triplett had 424 rushing yards, 90 receiving yards, and 6 total touchdowns. He also averaged 26.8 yards per punt return and had 3 interception returns for 62 yards. Triplett goes on to become the first black player to be drafted and play in the NFL in 1949. He signs a contract with the Detroit Lions for $5,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's more than his father makes working for the U.S. Postal Service, so of course his dad told him to take the contract. He sets a single game return record on October 29, 1950, with kick returns of 74, 81, 97, and 42 yards for a total of 294 yards. It's all for naught as the Lions give up 41 points in the third quarter and lose 65-24. But his record lasted until 1994. 2 weeks after his record-setting performance, Triplett became the first NFL player to be drafted into the Army and fought in the Korean War with the 594th Field Artillery Battalion for 2 years. When he comes home, he goes back to the NFL playing for the Chicago Cardinals. The We Are Penn State cheer didn't come about until the 1970s. In an article from the Penn State Rivals site written by Lou Prado, we see George Dennis, the cheerleading captain in 1977, remembers how quiet Beaver Stadium was in the mid-1970s when the facility had a seating capacity of about 60,000. The west side of the stadium where the press box is was dead in those years, Dennis said. Back then, when the team came out, we'd have the fans stomp their feet. You'd put your arms up and the hair would literally stand up on your arms because of the vibration. That was an unbelievable feeling, and so we wanted to try and generate that kind of enthusiasm all throughout the stadium during the games. So the Penn State cheerleaders work hard to get the crowd to start responding to this new cheer. I'm not going to go into all the details of it, and I will leave a link to the Lou Prado article in the video description so you can read it fully. But it takes a while to get it going. Again, from the article, still, it took another 3 years for the cheer to be fully adopted by Penn State fans. It was during the second game of the 1981 season at Nebraska that the cheerleaders were encouraged to press on despite the continued lethargy among students and alumni. Lee Giannone, another cheerleader and advisor, recalled the game. "We went out there and heard this loud cheer of 'Go Big Red' all the time throughout the stadium," Giannone said. "I remember after that game, we worked harder on trying to get our crowd to go back and forth. We'd say, 'We are,' and there would be no response. Towards the end of that year, the crowd caught up and would respond." So they worked and worked at it, and now it is the iconic cheer that unites all you Penn Staters across the universe. Before I end this video, I'm going to return to Wally Triplett because I found a couple of quotes from him that I want to share. From the book Game of My Life, Penn State, Memorable Stories of Nittany Lions Football by Jordan Hyman, comes a section on Wally Triplett. About his coach Bob Higgins, Triplett says, "The Hig was something else." Triplett says of his coach, "He and I never hit it off, and we went through school like that because I was always asking questions of why. Sometimes I didn't understand his thinking, and he would just say, 'Oh, you know, Wallace.' Hig wasn't a bigot, but he was typical of most white people at the time. They wanted things to be better, but they weren't willing to give up some of what they had to see that things were made equal." And then later, at the end of the chapter on Triplett, it all makes sense when he, Triplett, mentions how his Penn State days changed his life. "I began to look at things a little different," Triplett says. "I began to understand that you could find bigotry in some of the highest places, and you could find some of the greatest people in the world in some of the lowest places. You had to search yourself and get in there with them and say, 'Well, this is life. Let's live it and not be afraid.'" I think that's such a beautiful quote. Wally Triplett must have been an amazing human being. He passed away on November 8th, 2018 at the age of 92. The next time you hear the "We Are Penn State" cheer, know that there's significant meaning behind it. Not that it just sounds good or looks good on TV, especially when they're having one of those whiteout night games I'd love to go to but have never been. Maybe someday before I'm done. Wally Triplett and the "We Are Penn State" story are an important part of college football history and a constant reminder that sports isn't played in a vacuum, but it's always affected by the world around it. There are many more college football stories that I would like to tell, and I plan on doing so on this channel. I hope you like them, and I hope you subscribe and stay tuned for more. Please share them with your friends who might be interested in either history or college football so this channel can grow. This is John Johnston with Hardcore College Football History. Thank you.